Hello, this is Max Drake. I just want to talk about this app here. I initially was going to actually move on and do forecasting, but when I thought about the forecasting and what I wanted to do with that, was in the forecasting I actually have things which are repeat over time, like the monthly expenses of food per week or electricity or something like that. And you'd set a budget, but then you might actually find that you were being so effective that you can actually reduce that budget and allocate that money somewhere else. So I wanted to be able to, inside the app, go in and modify that on the front end. So I then wanted to do an edit on, it's like forecasting, and I actually said, okay, then I've got a budget of 150 per week for food. And I was suddenly thinking, no, I actually now want to reduce that per week to 130, and I'll reallocate that $20 to somewhere else in my budget, or maybe I'm just I can actually reduce it down. So I wanted a front end edit instead of somebody actually coming back into the database and trying to do some edits in the forecasting side in the back end through here. So, but reflecting on that, I suddenly thought the edit button was quite an important thing because it crosses over. It's going to cross over for the forecasting as well as what I'm doing here. Another thing that I actually noticed when I was doing this, so the first thing that I did was that when it creates the cards through here, it puts the idea of this particular database collection document through here, and that's attached to this icon. And the way that he does this, which I think is such an elegant solution, so this is the net ninja of what he does, is that he actually has inside the UI, when he comes through and he's got his string literal through here on the delete outline class. Oh, so that's the icon of delete outline, and that's within itags. So what he's actually said is inside the itags, it's also got this data ID of the ID of the document that he's got. So what he then says is in this part here, if there's an on click, where's that gone? Where can we find our container? Here we are. So in the container, he's got a listener, event listener for a click, and the click is in the grey area on the app. So all of the cards and everything on there. So it's a click event, and it said if the event target is equal to the I tag, then delete the item, then delete that thing. So it's such an elegant solution that basically it says you can click anywhere you like and nothing will happen. But as soon as I click on that I tag, bang. I thought, that's just beautiful. So I then thought, okay then, well, we just do this. So I made an edit icon, which is just a little pencil on an angle through there, and I got that working so that it would actually recognize the ID and I could put it against that. But unfortunately, I couldn't open up the form on the side when I pressed that. So my next thing was to do was I ended up with another button. So I ended up with this add button because that works to open up this form. So I thought, well, okay, then I made another button. I just made that an update button. And when I press that update button, the form opens. So I was suddenly thinking, well, okay, then if the icon doesn't work, I go and do a button. So this is actually a flat button and it works. But that was frustrating, the fact that I actually had to go through that. So anyway, I finally got it to the point where I can actually get the form. So I can actually go through and put some information in there, and I can update that expenses through there, and we just go and do that. And that's just, I did update. What are you doing nagging me there? So that's update there, and I just refresh through there. So a couple of things happened on the way. So first of all, when I got that information, so if we just go and look at the code briefly, what I do is I copy, first of all, when I get that document, I then get so on that event, when that event is triggered on the click, now I couldn't use an I tag, because if there's an I tag, it would just delete it. So I used a DFM, which I think is definition, which is, I think, quotes, So that's another one. So I use a different tag to actually go and hunt for that. So that's what it's aiming for. It's aiming for those definition tags. If it gets the DFN tag, then do this event. So if it gets that event, go and do this. And then first of all, I actually had to go and get from the database the document, the data, and the sum for that particular ID, and then push it onto this sum1.value. So since we already have a form with sum.value, all of these are just called 11111.value. So they just take that data from the database and put it into there. Then when I've got it into there, I can actually present it on the form. And then when I actually do an on-click on the button on the form, it sends it back. But what I actually had a problem with is if this was just called sum1.value, when I sent it back to the database, it sent it back as a number. So it changed this string to a number. So suddenly, anytime I changed anything, you couldn't use it because one was a number and the other one's a strings. So it stuffed up my database. So I had to find a way to actually move that out so that it would then be a number. So a thing. So in the end, I ended up with, and this is weird because if I go sum1.value there, it's nothing. So if I just go and select something there, and then I just go and do that and go sum1value. So it's given me the number here through there. Now, if I go document.forms, and if you go forms and go enter, it says there's, no, that's gone fonts. So I want document forms. It says there's two forms there, and it has this long stringy thing about what it's called, but it's got forms, which is the add expenses one, and we created a new form called update expenses one. So if I actually just go forms bracket 1, so it's the second one because JavaScript's index is to 0 first, I actually get the second one. So I actually get my update expenses form. So I've now got the form that I actually want. So once I've got that and push the sum one through there, and then if I just go document forms.1.sum sum1.value, that gets pushed through into the database as a string for some reason. So anyway, it works because that was giving me a lot of problems in the database of actually having dirty data in the database, so I couldn't use it. So I finally resolved that particular issue. So once I'd resolved that particular issue, the next one that I thought was a bit of an issue, but I actually found a solution for that, was one thing that you can actually do with this is if I go update expenses, I'm just going to put that into there and come through here, and I'm just going to refresh that, and you see this sum total goes to nan, because if there's a blank, also this actually happens with the add form. So if I just add a form and I just choose some billing or something like that and push that one through, oh no, that's still got the protection on it. Okay, then I can't do that. So I get blank. So this was happening as well with my plus form. When I was adding something to it, I was able to get a blank document, so I actually couldn't do. So when you actually put a blank there, it's not a 0, it's actually a blank, so it doesn't allow you to add up those things. So you've got to delete that out of the database, and then when I refresh it, those numbers come through. Another thing that was actually happening when I was actually adding something through into there, and if I didn't choose a category, I ended up with an issue of there was information is that I've got some sum of money going through, so I know my total, where I am in regards to my total, but I don't know. I actually want it at the next level of granularity as to all of these different categories, so I can see where I'm overspending on those. So that's why I actually wanted to use these ones through here. Now, this one didn't have, so this is why I needed the edit button here to be able to make sure that I actually had a category, and then it would push through. Now, the next issue that I then had is when I was actually doing a plus button, and I've now resolved this now, I could when I actually pushed the expenses through, and what actually happened before is it then made this form totally blank again. And then if you hit the button again, it would then push in blank data. So suddenly I was getting rubbish data inside my database as well. So to stop that in this particular exercise, what I did with both of these two is I didn't let it refresh. But what happens if I push that one, I'm actually going to change that to 45.1. And if I add that expense, because I'm actually not resetting the form to 0, because if I press that button again, it would actually push blank data into the form, then none of my sums would actually work as well. What I did was I actually just put this alert box up there that said, no, actually your information has gone into the database, you just haven't seen any change on the actual form itself. So if I do that, but that ends up being that you end up doing a double. You press one button and then you've got to press the alert button to actually say, yes, we'll let that go all the way through, which is a bit of a nuisance as well. So the next one, I suddenly realized there's something which you can do on the form. So the other one that I had, if I just want to refresh this one here, was that if I added something into the form, and let's just say I choose this, and I choose this one here, add the expense, it says, no, I'm not going to let you in there. So in the HTML, both in select and in input, there's this required attribute, which says you must put something in there, otherwise I won't let you do. So that means you can actually refresh the form. I can put 12 into there now, and then when I try and add that expense, it says, no, you've got to actually put a category in there as well. So unless you've got those two bits of input, I'm not accepting data. So now it actually goes back and sets for blank, but it won't let me re-put anything in there because I've got blanks in here. So that was a solution to actually make sure that I got categories in there. So now, because I've got that category, I don't end up with the issue of these ones here. So these ones, I don't actually need to go back and edit and make a category because I now set them so that you also need a category. So if I refresh that, so it's only doing it when the data comes back out and again it refreshes. And this is the second one, and I'll just blow. Just do a refresh on that. No, I've still got a 45 somewhere. That is not allocated. That one there. So, sorry, the reason why that wasn't. So now if I refresh that, there shouldn't be any. But now I've got that second setup. This last bit isn't required because you won't be able to input any data unless you've actually got the category in there. So I can actually put that onto certain criteria that I always need as to which shop it is or something. But the two that are a key to actually make sure that they're in the right area, the category, are these two are covered. So that's all I need. And that's quite sensible, really. You're out and about and you're doing something, and maybe you just bought something in one shop and you're heading to another shop or something. You're doing a bit of data input quickly. You don't want to put erroneous data in there and then mess around with things because you're sort of moving around. You actually wanted to make sure that what you're putting in there is clean and it's in the right criteria so that it actually fits through. So I'm quite pleased now at the end of that, but it has been quite a bit quite painful going back and having to learn a lot of JavaScript with the DOM. And that's quite a good learning thing. But I did see one which was actually a progress bar, where you can actually get a progress bar and put it against a category, say. So you can actually say my budget for that category is $50. And so far my food is 49. So you can say, well, that's up at something like 97% complete. So on all of these, I can actually have those. So, and that was quite a nice bit of JavaScript because you've actually, the tutorial that was doing it, there's a constructor. So it's actually constructing a whole class to actually make that happen. And it seemed quite a nice exercise to do. Now, it's quite easy just to go and get a library of something like chart.js to actually just do the displaying of all of those things. But I thought it might be a better bit of learning, because that's one of the issues that I actually have with JavaScript, because it's sort of event-based and all of that. I actually have a real problem with the coding of it. And so the more practice, and this is a problem with what I do, is I jump around into a whole lot of different things. I'll be doing something with maps one day. I'll be doing something with databases another day. I'll be doing something, just something, whatever's actually taking my interest, that I'm not doing the same coding all the time. I'm jumping around. So I never do it enough for it to kind of embed, to become second nature. So nearly every time I come back to something, I'm sort of struggling back at the beginner stages. So that's another reason why I'm doing these videos, because then I know, I've actually come across that before. What was the solution that I actually used? So this one now, I'm happy with the edit button, and I'm quite confident now to go on that when I start doing the forecasting, I've got the tools to be able to edit, things like my sums up and down as I go along, to actually do some fine tuning, and it's all being done at the front end. So again, as I said, with the Glide app, I have to go into the back end onto the Google Sheet to actually monthly to go and tweak those. I'm hoping I won't need to do that. At the moment, I've got the one that actually sets the date. That I'm saying, show me everything from a specific date forward. I'm hoping to be able to do something, to be able to have a switch that will actually be able to do that. So in the code where it's actually saying, where it's pulling it out of the database on the where, is it in the database? Yes, it's through here. So where we've got this where date through here, if I can get a variable and actually just bung that variable in. So if I've got something that I can actually go and set, and I can find it an easy way to actually do the calculation from an actual date into a thing, so that I can set that each time, then I can actually just automatically modify it so that whatever's in the database sits in the database, and all you're doing is actually just showing by a specific point. I've got thoughts around that. Haven't evolved that point yet. I've still got to get the functionality. So the next thing is to actually get the forecasting to do a reference, a compare, which is what the whole app is about. Well, no, part of the app is actually going out and capturing the information fast, which it does. The PWA does it quite nicely. The second part is to have something to compare against. So that's that. Hopefully it'll be the next thing. Anyway, I hope that's been of interest to you. Thank you very much for watching. If you found it useful, can you please give a thumbs up? Can you think about subscribing? And also, I've got a Patreon site, so if you think about becoming a patron, that would be great as well. Thank you very much.